I totally apologize. Jesse, can you hear me now? Je- Jesse, I totally apologize. That I again, sometimes these audio problems we can't figure out, but as long as you can hear me, okay. So let me kind of go back a little bit. Once again, I apologize if you guys are coming in late, and to Jesse and to Keisha and to Jacques. I apologize if you couldn't hear me before. And but let me kind of go back a little bit. Some of this might be a review for I know Jacques and some of you might be involved in the online class or on ground class as well. So some of this might be a little bit of review for some of what Kim was talking about before. But let me just kind of go back for a second here and let's talk a little bit for the online students. Remember that the discussion that you have to have for this week is kind of going back into your own history and telling Kim and I a little bit about your it history with publishing, basically. Like, what's new with technology? I mean, do you guys watch uh modern television these days, or do you even rent DVDs, or do you do this all online? And that's kind of the discussion is for this week, is to tell Kim and I a little bit about your history and tell us, like, what is the future of the industry? Do you think that everything will go all online with, like, Netflix, or do you think there's still a market for hard copy CDs? I could tell you, just even going through my own classes at UCF, I could tell you that there's a lot of people that don't even have an intention these days of ever renting or buying a CD. They're gonna get all their stuff through iTunes, basically. And do you see that as the future? I mean, like, what do you think about that? So that's kind of this discussion for this week for the online students. And so let's talk a little bit though about Project 3, which is for both the online and on ground students. And some of this might be a review for some of you that on the on ground class that Kim talked a little bit about this, but let's go over some of the details about this again. Okay, so one of the things to remember is when Kim did her version of Project 3, right? She had a publisher already in mind, right? So she had written a few books, and some of her books were published with McGraw Hill, but she said, well, wait a minute. Actually, I want to take a step back here and I want to learn how to self publish, right? Because that's the class that she was teaching, and that's one of the things that she wanted to kind of be versed up on. With her latest book, she said, like, look, I have a history with publishing that's good, but I want to know how I can explain this to students. So what she did is she went and self-published her book, right? And now at the time, her book was based on a history figure called Countess Elizabeth Bathory, or Urshabet Bathory. And she was a very, very popular figure. She's been featured in movies in the 1970s called, like, Countess Dracula. There's another movie called Daughters of Darkness. She's based on the if you're fans of, like, Snow White, right? The evil stepmother is based on her because she always looks in the mirror and she's obsessed with her appearance in the mirror. And there's also a few movies in the 1990s. I forget the name of them offhand, but anyway, so she's a very, very popular figure, and that's what Kim's book is about. And around this time, and this is like 2009, right? Vampires were very popular. The Twilight movies were coming out, and true crime accounts were coming out, and so this is a very, very popular book, right? So Kim, what she did And also, here's a little bit of a background of this character. So her name is Ershebet Bathory, and she's alleged to have killed over 650 people, right? And she was, according to history, she was this lesbian vampire serial killer who killed over 650 victims, and she had them walled alive in her tower. And basically, though, a long story short, though, Kim did the research on this, and one of the things that makes Kim's books like really, really, really extremely intelligent is that she actually went and she did an examination of the court records, right? So this is like the first time ever that this book got translated into the court records, right? So long story short, what Kim found is that a lot of this stuff, like, you see here, this 650 victims, a lot of this stuff was kind of overblown, and it was really not accurate. And so that story kind of got overblown a little bit. But nonetheless, though, that's one of the big selling points of Kim's book, is that she was the first person ever to actually go through the court records and translate that book into English, which nobody had ever done, right? So that's kind of the big selling point for her book. And then, of course, with Kim's book too, you know, she was able to also send, email announcements out. She created a Facebook page. Let me actually show you guys this, if you want. Well, actually, I apologize. I don't have the. Oh, actually, well, there's the link for Amazon if you want to buy the book. But then also, Kim has a Facebook page. It's called, I think it's just called CountessBathory.com, I think. But you can actually do a Google search on that if you want. But basically, what you guys want to do for your project, for Project 3, is that you do want to set up like an official fan page, whether it's Facebook or it's Twitter. Once again, Kim and I are not going to judge. We're not going to say like, oh, well, that's a bad page or anything like that. But we do want you to set up an official page, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or MySpace or whatever it might be, and we want you to see how you guys do this for Project 3, right? And also, what Kim and I want to emphasize to you is that, okay, so Kim showed you how she's going to do Project 3. So where will your project go, right? So tell us how you are going to develop your Project 3, and tell us how you're going to make $1 million. And then also you can give you can give Kim and I a royalty check for showing you how to do this. I'm just kidding, but but just tell us where your Project 3 will go. So does that make sense to Jesse and Jacques and to Keisha? Do you get a sense that where we want to see your Project 3 go? You're gonna tell us how you're gonna make $1 million, right? Okay, so Jesse says, so part of the project is to make a real page. Well, no, you don't have to make like a real fan page, but just explain how you would go about doing that, if that makes sense. I mean, yeah. So definitely Jesse and Jacques and Keisha, tell Kim and I how you are going to make $1 million, right? This is your $1 million project, right? So tell us how you're going to set up your page and set up your project. And I can also tell you that for almost everybody's project too, I mean, you guys did a really, really good job. Both the in-class and on-ground students, I mean, you guys did a really, really good job in kind of explaining that. So there's Jacques. And then also let's go over the discussion questions for the on ground students. Remember, for you on can't or online students, remember you don't have to do this. This is just for the on campus students. Um, the attendance questions. Okay, so number one, actually, you know what? Well, let me jump ahead here a second here. And actually, before we even get into the on campus attendance questions, let me just kind of go over some of the things that Kim talks about in her last book. The latest chapters is socialnomics, right? So this one guy, Eric Coleman, he actually wrote a book in 2009. Actually, he actually has a couple of updated versions if you want to check those out. I think in 2013, 2014. So he's got some updated versions about this. But one of the things that he talks about is socialnomics, right? The idea that I know that you guys had Ken's class before, and I know that Ken talked a little bit about how you can actually make money these days doing socialnomics, right? Because about 5 years ago, everybody thought that, like, if you had any kind of project, whether it was a book or was a film or was it a TV show, whatever it might be, you could not really make money. Like, you could not really advertise. But what has happened in the last 5 years, and that what Eric Coleman talks about, is how you can actually set up um, a web page and you can actually make money off that web page, even if it's tied to your book, right? And so he talks about how the internet is actually revolutionizing the economy these days, right? And again, I don't want to go into a lot of detail about this because I know that, like, some of you in class students, I know that Kim talked about this yesterday, but if you're really, really interested in how you can make money doing this stuff as a self-publishing author, or when I say author, I'm not just talking about books, but I'm talking about, like, films, television shows, music, etc. Study this person. Her name is Amanda Hawking, and she was able to kind of, in her own way, make a lot of money, because what happened was that she was kind of the self-publishing author, and she did exactly what you guys are doing for projects 1 and 2, right? She went to an agent. She could not find an agent that would accept her. She went to different publishers. She could not find anybody that accepted her, right? But she said, okay, well, guess what? I'm going to do it myself. And she did exactly what you guys are doing for project 3. She said, okay, I'm going to set up my own website. I'm going to set my own page. I'm going to sell my books the old-fashioned way, doing it myself. And guess what? Now, these days, she's a multimillionaire. In fact, her latest book is actually it's being adapted by the same guy that adapted District 9 from last year, and now she's like a multimillionaire. So she's doing exactly what you guys are doing for Project 3. And like I said, if she can do it, you guys can do it definitely as well, right? And then Jacques says, okay, can I consider self-publishing a DVD version of the television? Absolutely, Jacques. You absolutely can. And you said that you were finding trouble with royalty, licensing, copyright information through Orchard distribution. Well, I'll tell you what, Jacques, let's talk a little bit about this in tomorrow's class. Like, see me before and after class. But I think, just to kind of respond to your question right here, I think that if you go through CreateSpace, I think that you might be able to get through some of those hurdles that you're talking about with the Orchard, because from what I understand, the Orchard is not the greatest company. Um, but it's still okay. It's still okay. Don't get me wrong, but it's not the greatest company. But let's talk a little bit about that in right before tomorrow's class. So okay, so let's get to the discussion questions and actually, even before we do this though, let me kind of walk you guys through. This is kind of review from last week, but if you want to look at some examples of what other students have done for Project 3, this is a reality show. So this is a television example, but this is what the student did, right? So they have their mission statement, they have their executive summary. I blocked out their name for anonymous reasons, but they go into a little bit of detail about their executive summary. They talk about their company description, the product, which is the film itself, right? And in this particular case, they talk about manufacturing and distribution. They talk about Syndicato, which is kind of a company that I've never heard of necessarily, but nonetheless, they go through you know the specific details about their distribution. And then just a nitpick here, I would actually ask for the student to do a little bit more of a detailed conclusion, but nonetheless, still pretty good, right? Okay, and then this is somebody else. They go through their mission statements. They talk about this particular product. It is the mission of the title, etc. They go through their executive summary. Once again, that's a little bit of information about yourself, right? They talk about their company. Remember, for this project, for Project 3, remember that this can be made up. This does not have to literally be your main company. This does not have to be exactly what your company is for your final plan for EBMS. I mean, you'll get more into that with when you go into Steve's class, Steve Burho's class, and he walks you through like kind of the step by step stuff that you have to do for your final business plan. But remember, for this class, you don't have to do that. So the student talks about their product. It's a short film, and in this section, maybe just to nitpick, I would like to see a little bit more of information about the product here. But nonetheless, though, this is a really good job that the student did, right? And they go into their manufacturing and distribution. They talk a little bit about their marketing promotion. And once again, I know that this section here, the marketing and promotion, I know that like you guys had the whole class with Ken, right? The branding, and you may have got into a little bit more detail here, but nonetheless, though, you don't have to go into a lot of detail here. Just give Kim and I just a little bit of an idea of what your marketing and promotion might be. Okay, and then the student offers a conclusion. So let's also look at another example here. I think I showed you guys this last week. This is actually a really good student, and her book is a really good. She talks about how like the title is "Where Did Grandma Go?" Right. So she talks again. We're not going to go into a lot of detail here about the product here, but she talks about the mission of the book. She goes into a very lengthy examination of her, executive summary. She talks about the company description. She talks about the product. She even provides kind of a chapter list of the book, right? So she goes to that. Um, She goes into manufacturing and distribution, marketing and promotion. So really, really good job. Just to nitpick this a tad, I would want kind of a little bit of a conclusion here, but nonetheless, though, she does a really, really good job. Okay. Okay, so let's get into some of the attendance questions that you have to ask. And for you on campus students, you have to fill this out, right? Um, so just give me 1 second here. Actually, I totally apologize. I have to do this from scratch. I thought I had this loaded, but that's okay. Okay, so just give me one, 1 second here. But in the meantime, as I'm loading this, does Jacques, Jesse, or Keisha, do you have any questions? Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's look here at the week 4 attendance questions, and remember that this is only for the on-campus students. Like you online students, you don't have to actually um, go through and answer these. These are only for the um, on-campus students. And actually, basically, what happened? Just to kind of give you kind of an explanation about this. What happened was about 6 months ago Full Sail kind of changed their policy where instead of doing 14 classes, we now only have 12 classes, which I think is actually works out for everybody. I think that's a really good policy. But as a result, what they have done is actually they changed instead of having 14 classes for the on-campus students, they make the on-campus students attend these go-to sessions, which are they count for like 2 hours each, whatever. So that's one of the reasons why the on-campus students have to do these tests. But so, anyways, let's kind of go through these answers, and I'm going to give you the answers right now, actually. So, number one, what piece of creative content will you be using for your self-publishing project? Basically, I mean, exactly what you guys are working on for project 3, right? So it could be a film, it could be a TV project, it could be a music project, it could be a game treatment or a project, it could be a book project. So that's the answer to number one. Like whatever you're doing for project 3 is the answer to number 1, right? And then number 2, in the mission section, you should be discussing the mission of your what? The answer is your project. Remember that for number 2, what Kim sometimes sees is when students say, well, I'm talking about the mission of my company. Remember, for this class, this is kind of a real world class. This is kind of a class where you can kind of be on your own, and you don't have to talk about your final project for EBMS. So the answer to number 2 is the mission for your project, right? So it could be your book, it could be your film, it could be your music project, whatever it might be, right? That's the answer number 2. It's not the mission of your company that you're doing for your final EBMS project. It's the mission for your project that you're doing for this class for project 3, right? Okay. So number 3, is it acceptable to use real, hypothetical, or final business for this project? The answer is that it is completely acceptable to use a totally hypothetical thing, right? I mean, one of the goals that that Kim and I hope that you have learned through going through this class is that we're not really we don't expect you to be able to like write a screenplay in like 4 weeks, right? We don't expect you to have a music project in 4 weeks, right? But our goal is to show you how you would go about doing these types of things when you do have it complete. So for number 3, the answer is that it's totally okay to use something that's completely hypothetical for this project and for this class. So you can use something for real. I mean, if you're definitely using this stuff for your final business plan for EBMS, that's totally okay. But if you just want to kind of make up things and kind of do something totally hypothetical, like so for example, if you have like a screenplay in mind, and let's just say that you have the basics down and you want to use that for project 3, that's okay. We're not expecting you to have the whole thing done, right? So I hope that makes sense for number 3. Number 4, what is an aggregator or print on demand company? I mean, for number 4, you can literally put down your aggregator. You could literally put down CreateSpace or TuneCore or um, Film Baby or CD Baby, like whatever it might be. But the point, though, with Project 3, with their manufacturing and distribution strategy, is that you are explaining what your print-on-demand company might be, right? So there's a lot of options to choose from. There's no right or wrong answer, but as long as you put that down, that's what we're looking for that, right? Number 5, how will a PE or a POD be necessary for this project? Well, keep in mind what you want to put for number 5 is that the print on demand company is the one that gets your content out there, right? It's kind of takes place of the agent, right? Because the agent for project 2 is kind of your print on demand company, right? That they are the ones that kind of get your product out there. But for project 3, your POD is CreateSpace or it's TuneCore, or it's CD Baby or it's Film Baby or it's distributor, whoever it might be, and they are the ones that kind of get your project out there. They are the ones that kind of self-publish and distribute your product. Okay, so does that make sense? Before I move on to number 6, is everybody clear on that? Okay, cool. Okay, so number 6, if you do have a POD in mind already, which one is it, right? So, so you might not have the answer to this right now. That's totally fine if you want to do some more research on this before Sunday, but you're just going to tell Kim and I which one you have in mind and why you chose that, right? So it could be a number of different companies, but just explain which one it is and why you chose that, okay? So number 7, is it acceptable to reuse relevant content from projects 1 and 2 in this particular project? The answer, and hopefully Cassie's not listening because I know that she might not like this answer, but the answer is absolutely. It's totally fine. It's totally fine to reuse if you want some of the stuff that you did for projects 1 and 2, right? So like some of the stuff that you talked about in your executive summary or your biography for project 2, you can totally use that for project 3, and that's totally fine, and Kim and I welcome that. I mean, and actually, some of the stuff that you talked about too for the marketing and promotion for Project 2, you could definitely reuse a lot of that because remember that this is a real world class, right? So that we're looking for how you guys are going to use this in the real world, and it's true in the business world and the entertainment world that absolutely people reuse some of their previous stuff, and that's totally fine. So just so number 7 is it's totally acceptable, and so the answer is yes to number 7, right? It's totally acceptable to reuse some of your previous stuff, right? Okay, number 8, where can you find the business strategy template and some of the other things? You can find those things in the references, and also you can even put on there that you can find these stuff in the appendix of the textbook. But but you can totally find these stuff in the course references, right? And number 9, is there a page requirement for this project? Um, the answer is no, but I will just tell you that in the history that Kim and I have been doing this class, there's no page requirement, but I can tell you for certain that the students that tend to do the best on this assignment for project 3 tend to provide us a lot of detail, right? So the answer is that there's no requirement, but I mean, to be honest, if you want to do really good on this assignment, the more detail that you can provide um, to Kim and I for project 3, the better grade that you're probably going to get. So there's no requirement, but I mean, that's just kind of a little bit of a caveat, is to let you know that the more students provide, the better grade that they tend to get. And then number 10, are you required to double space or do anything for APA? Remember, no, this is a real world class, and in the real world, you don't have to do APA, right? So there's no APA requirements, and I know that might be different than some of your other classes, but in this class, we this is a real world class, and so I guess we're better than than those other classes that you might have had, right? And in the real world, APA is not required. So I mean, obviously, if you do have sources, you want to cite the sources, but I mean, it's not required, right? So at this point, are there any questions that Jacques, Jesse, Keisha, that you might have? I mean, definitely, I know that it's only Thursday. Once again, I apologize that we did have to have this Thursday as opposed to Tuesday, but I had my own thing at UCF. I had to attend a conference, so couldn't do it this Tuesday. But definitely want to thank you guys for attending on Thursday. And as always, remember that you still have until Sunday to complete the project 3. And so if you do have any questions, feel free to contact Kim or I. And actually, I this is kind of going outside what I normally say, but I will just say that, like, we love you guys. Like, this month was so great. I mean, both of you on campus students and online students. I mean, you guys were just so wonderful that we really appreciate your hard work and all the effort that you put into this month. And we definitely want to kind of say thank you, but also good luck to the rest of your classes and your business endeavors, and definitely keep in touch with Kim and I, because we definitely love you guys. So okay, so I'm gonna go ahead here and I'll close this out, but I'm gonna put this up on FSO. And so if there's any questions between now and Sunday, just feel free to give Kim and I, or send an email or give us a call, and we'll definitely hear from you guys later on. So okay, so thank you, Jesse and Keisha and Jacques, and we'll definitely talk to you guys later. Okay.